Hi everybody, thank you so much for clicking on this video. My name is Emma and I am the human behind the Ratatouille channel, I guess. The reason why you've got my face today is because I couldn't think of a better way to tell this story, and this story is something that I introduced in the comment section of the lasagna video, which is that we noticed during the filming of the lasagna video that Nova had a mammary lump, and this video is the 3 week later update on how she's been. And I mean, normally I would just be like, hey, she's fine, look, ta-da, cage, but I really wanted to take the time to make this video in a way that would be useful for people, because this is, I hope, going to be the video that I wish I had when Nova's mammary lump was removed successfully, but we weren't able to get the spay that we asked for as well, when Nova overnight ripped out all of her stitches, which was a surprise to come to in the morning, and we then had to work out a way to stop her from getting to her stitches in a practical way that our vet would support us with. And finally is the reason why we now have a half explorer and a cage right beside this phone of the younger rats, and really that's down to Nova not quite coping with the stress of all of these things happening beforehand. I hope that by by you experiencing the noises that I live with, which are water bottles being drunk from, that you will get a snapshot into what life's like with rats. I'm not sure how long this video will be. I'll try and be as concise as possible so that I don't take up too much of your time. But I would recommend that you grab a lovely cup of tea and a biscuit. I have a biscuit. It's a wafer, a PB break. I'm going to eat it the next time that the rats start to drink again, really. I don't actually think that Nova's first symptom that there was something wrong was the visibility of the mammary lump. Obviously mammary lumps don't start being visible on the outside. I think that, and this is entirely speculation, but given that a couple of days before we saw the mammary lump, she started to barber herself, I think that there was definitely a bit of discomfort or her knowing that something wasn't quite right before we were able to see the lump. And that's just because since her operation, Nova started to get better. Another friend had a male rat who had a lump on his bladder, and his only symptom before they actually realised he had a mass in his abdomen was that he started to chew more unusually. So a change of behaviour in an animal normally means that there's something wrong, which is why it's so important to let yourself really get to know your animals and to trust that you know your animals whenever you get the inkling that something is wrong. Barbering can be a learned behaviour where, for example, you might get a rat that likes to trim and give everyone some haircuts or just haircut themselves, but it can also be a sign that your rat is stressed or bored. Boredom wasn't an explanation that sat well with me, to be honest, because it's really hard to believe it when I change the cage around so often and I do things like scatter feeding, so nothing's easy in this cage, like they have to work for it. So that left the other reason, which is stress. At the same time that Nova started barbering, we were in the middle of a move from one flat into the one that I'm currently in. Rat's routine was definitely disrupted. In fact, they were even in a different cage just to make moving things over, because this is a beast, a little bit easier. And I felt so guilty when Nova obviously had this outward display that she wasn't okay, because I thought they would be okay. And I was very wrong, and I couldn't believe it that when I consider myself to be quite an empathetic owner and quite compassionate to their needs, that I'd missed something, which is more my ego. I should have just accepted the criticism from my rat and changed things and moved it along. But I felt quite guilty, and I can't sit and tell my rat that things are going to be okay, I've heard you, I'm sorry. So my way of making myself feel better about it, while we were already starting to return the rats to a more usual routine, we'd finished the move anyway by this point, was to feed them. So I made them a lasagna. Unfortunately, while we were filming the lasagna video, that is when we noticed the mammary lump. I don't routinely look for mammary lumps. I do health checks maybe like once every couple of weeks and we weigh them, but there had been no like spikes, so there was no reason for me to do the proper feel. I've now started doing that because I feel really shit. So from looking from behind, it was just a kind of subtle U, but when we stretched her out, so you know when you hold your rat, I was going to look for a rat to demo. When you hold your rat underneath the armpit and you just kind of let their, like, and you're picking them up and they kind of go a little bit limp. When we did that with her, it was just a kind of like small green grape sized, I guess. And but it was definitely in one of the mammary locations. So I'm not a stranger to mammary lumps. I've had 2 rats in the past, Rosie and May, who were rescues, and they seemed to tag team who it was that would have a mammary lump. And looking back, they actually gave me a pretty easy ride of it because it was very routine. They would have their mammary lumps removed and then they would just bounce back and recover, and I wouldn't have to do anything apart from, you know, the usual post-op care. So I wasn't too concerned. I had the usual kind of anxiety about anaesthetic, but I pretty much knew from leaving mammary lumps too long and regretting it, I knew that I just wanted to have it removed. Nova was the perfect surgical candidate, so we requested her lump to be removed with a spay if possible. I did get the phone call to say the surgery was a success. However, they wanted to send a biopsy because the lump was pretty much having a wee mad party to itself in her abdomen and was growing in a way that was quite unusual for mammary tissue, and they weren't 100% sure that they'd managed to get it all. Because of the complexity of the operation to remove the lump, they'd been unable to spay her during it because the operation was a little bit longer than they had expected, which was fine. I was just so happy that the lump had been removed and that Nova was okay. So we picked Nova up at the end of the day. We had like a great pain management plan as well with her, which I find sometimes something that you need to discuss with the vet, but our vet was on the ball, so I was really happy and confident when we took her home. We put her on some fleece and we were just invited to do the normal, which is keep on top of pain management and let them know if by the next morning she hadn't gone to the toilet. My vet is open at the weekend as well, so I was quite confident that if anything went wrong, and sure that it wouldn't, of course, famous last words as a pet owner, never assume that nothing will go wrong. So the operation was on a Friday, and on the Saturday morning, I'd walked the dog and my partner had checked that Nova was still with us. I came back from the dog walk and, oh okay, now I'm back, I'll have a cup of tea and then I'll check Nova's stitches and make sure everything's okay. And I did, and realised that she'd pulled out like all of her stitches, and by all of them I mean like I could see more of my rat than I've ever wanted to see in my life, which was a surprise to me because thank you Rosie and May for giving me such an easy ride. I would so appreciate you both so much more right now than I did Nova at that time. Having 15 minutes before I could call the vet at night when they opened, I think it was at 9 AM they opened, was probably quite good for me because it gave me time to compose myself after I'd seen that. And I wasn't hysterical, I was just exceptionally surprised and work out my game plan. So obviously priority was getting in contact with the vet and to get Nova in for an emergency operation, again, to stitch her back together. But also I wanted to make sure that we weren't going back in on the Sunday for a third operation. So it was clear Nova couldn't be trusted. It gave me time to collect my thoughts and to reach out to the rat community in the UK to ask for some advice. I think rat communities, or pet communities in general, could be a fantastic source of information and just hive minding a problem. When we took Nova in, I knew that she was going to go in for an operation, but I found that having the instructions on how to wrap a rat to hand for going into the surgery meant that I could already introduce the idea of wrapping a rat to my vet before we picked her up later. It meant that when we got the phone call, and I was so nervous about this because it's high risk enough putting a rat in for an operation, never mind 2 back-to-back when your rat hasn't even had time to fully recover from the first one. I was so stressed out, guys. Like, as pet lovers, who I'm sure that most of the people are who are watching this are, you will understand the wait whenever your pet is in the vet and you're not with them. To my vet's credit, she stood with us 30 minutes and some compression bandages and made sure that we had already wrapped Nova before we left. It was recommended that we leave the wrap on for 3 days, but we found that there were a couple of things that meant that we had to give Nova a break. The first is that her abdomen had overnight become a little bit distended, just a little bit more than what we wanted. Nothing life-threatening, I think, was going on. But it is beneficial to give your rat a rest. So what I found that I was doing is, while she was recovering from her anaesthetic, I was just taking it off and spending a bit of time with her. Most of it was just her sleeping against my hand. The second day I noticed that Nova was starting to become a little bit less herself. So Nova was looking really sorry for herself, and she kept worrying her incision site, and I didn't want to wrap her again so quickly, so I thought, right, maybe I should take her mind off of her. So I brought her sister Daisy in, because I know Daisy and Nova have about the same energy levels, and look at the difference in her. She's already stolen a bit of tissue to make a nest. She's she was showing this kind of behaviour earlier, but she's a lot more enthusiastic about eating. Daisy is she'll look white to you, but she's actually a roan rat who sometimes bops about in the background. And Daisy and Nova are the same age, about the same energy level. And Daisy is one of our peacekeeper rats. She is an absolute delight. And we put her in with Nova, and she gave her the biggest licks and she's just amazing. Hi, Papa. Hello. So, we stopped wrapping her day 3 because that would have given her skin enough time to knit together. I think she tried to show me what she thinks of the bandage, which isn't good. 4 days post-op, we took Nova to the vet for her checkup, and it was great, really. They were really happy with how her incision was looking. We'd stopped wrapping her at this point as well, so I think she was feeling better, and Daisy was pretty much in with her full time at this point in the hospital cage. Advice in rat communities, and actually most pet communities, tends to be that after a big stressful event like an operation, the quicker that you can get your pet back into its normal routine. So for a rat, that would be back in with its cage mates, as long as the cage wasn't going to impact on their mobility, so it wouldn't be too hard. Like, I wouldn't put a rat that just lost a leg straight back in with its friends. I'd give them more time to adapt. But for Nova, she was getting around fantastically, and it was just a lump that we'd basically removed from her. So I was really keen after she did so well at her post-op check 4 days after the operation to get her back with her group. My group up to this point had always been quite stable as well, so I was like, well, why not? Because it didn't go well. So instead of putting them in a carrier, I actually moved them to what I would call stage 2. So I used Alaska, and the Alaska is the cage with the red base that I normally use for like mega fishing for peas. And I put them all in it together. No toys, substrate, and a bunch of like treats scattered about into water bottles, which is what I normally do and what I did for Primrose and Juniper. And things were going fine, and then suddenly they weren't. Nobody got bitten because I stopped it before that could even become a possibility. But what did happen is that Nova turned into this little ball of rage, which I have never seen her do. And she was picking fights with what seemed like everyone. I have 2 peacemakers in my cage. Daisy is one of them. She tends to deflect fights by getting in the middle and redirecting it onto her. She's definitely doing that this time. So I couldn't work out who the aggression was working on. Our other peacekeeper is Bear. But it's because he just sits on anybody that's fighting. So he just comes in and plunks himself on top of everyone. And no one can move, and everyone just splits up. Oh, no, you can carry on, it's fine. I'll just talk. You can carry on wheeling and I'll talk. It's like she knows what I'm saying. But only they did. I separated everyone pretty quickly after the aggression started to show, and reached out to my friends in the rat community again. The suggestion was that maybe she just needed a little bit more time. And that's fine. Time is something that I'm more than happy to give my animals. Like, I didn't get rats so that I could be like annoyed by having to change what my view is of what I want the cage to look like, which is big double explorer and everyone together. Like, You're meant to be a starter pet. They're meant to be starter pets, but they're not. They're not really, are they? You say hello to everybody. They're all listening to your story about you. So I decided, it was recommended that I wait until she was about 1 week post-op. We didn't actually try and integrate people until 2 weeks post-operatively. So I used the carrier method for this next introduction because I wanted to treat it like a new introduction, or one where I wanted to take a little bit more caution on it. I noticed Nova becoming tense, I noticed her spiking up again, and this time I was able to see that most of the aggression, in fact all of it, was directed to a rat that was under 8 months old, mostly Juniper. And when Juniper got bitten by Nova, that's when I stopped the introduction and separated everybody. I was definitely starting to doubt myself and what decisions I was making, because it just felt like I was getting them all wrong. So I separated everybody and reached out to 2 groups of people. The first thing I did was I reached out to the NFRS. I'm a member of them, so I'm a member of their forums, which is great because I'm able to get access to the brilliant minds of the rat fancy in the UK. But the feedback that I got was that it sounded more like Nova had been traumatised, and that made sense to me. The people that I reached out to get more detail on what it is that I can do, or even just to help me understand how she might be, I guess, feeling, was that I have a subscription to a Facebook-based service called Ratwise, and it's basically the author of The Scuttling Gourmet and other people who are interested in why rats rat and how rats think about the world. And I described Nova's story, I described the output, and my question was more around about, this is totally out with the scope of what I know and my experience level as a rat owner. How is it that you would take a rat who's traumatised and help them to recover? Is it just giving them more choice, or is there like a set thing that I should be doing? Or the output makes sense in that what we're now doing is just letting her choose how much she wants to interact with me, and just giving her a little bit more control of her world so that she can just regain that trust and feel a little bit more settled, and just let all the stress hormones just leave her body, and then she'll feel a lot better. But we're not going to let her do everything that she wants. Like just now she wants to jump onto Juniper's cage, which is here, and she's currently over there, and that is not happening. Yes. So thank you so much for watching this video and for getting to the end of it. High five. Boop. I hope you found it helpful, but if not, I hope you've at least found it interesting. And thank you so much for watching, and have a fantastic day and evening. And I hope you finished your tea, because I have. Mine's a little bit cold now. And I didn't even eat this. I know you're all on the edge of your seats to find out how nice this chocolate was. Oh yeah, Noah was going to jump in the other cage, and then she heard a sweet wrapper. And now everybody wants me. Oh, they're like a timeout. Ah! This is so mine though.